In today's episode of Today in World War II, January 28th, the Finns eliminate more Soviet forces and capture a lot of booty. RAF Ace Roland-Robert Stanford Tuck is awarded the DSO for bravery on this date. Coincidentally, on this date a year later, the Germans shoot him down and take him prisoner. That's uh, that's bad luck, good luck and bad luck right there. Uh, the British destroyers off of Tunisia do the equivalent of clubbing baby seals off of Tunisia, except instead of baby seals, they're Italians. The last successful escape from Colditz prisoner war camp, Colditz Castle, happens, but the brave POW that pulled off that escape disappeared into night and fog. Kesselring orders a counterattack against the beachhead at Anzio, thinking, well, they're not moving out of the breakout anyway. I might as well attack them. And then finally, the U.S. POWs resist the German attempt to single out the Jews among them, famously, and that's really interesting to get into. So let's get started. Okay. On January 28th, 1940, Finnish troops eliminated Soviet forces that had been trapped in the Pienikelivaara pocket on the north shore of Lake Ladoga. This was still relatively good times. December was a good month for them. January was a pretty good month for them. But, I'm going to foreshadow here and tell you know that it starts going south for them around mid-February. They just didn't have enough manpower and enough supplies coming in to be able to hold off the Soviet Brontosaurus attacks, without a lot of help, and they didn't get that help because of timidity from their neighbors and their so-called allies. But that's a story from their time. In this case, they're still fighting a brave resistance, and they were able to capture two artillery pieces, two anti-tank guns, mortars, machine guns, and about 100 rifles. And for them, that was important because they gave that out. They gave those out to their soldiers to be able to keep fighting. That's how desperate things were for the Finns in their fight for freedom. The biggest fight for freedom that we have nowadays is subscribing to YouTube channels. I know it sounds like I'm really making a big deal out of this. Maybe it's not really freedom. Maybe it's just helping me with my content and my reach. Regardless, let's just make an exaggerated point to frame the fact that I'd like you to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell that says that you are going to get notified whenever I drop a new video, because gosh darn it, I'm good enough, I'm good looking enough, and people like me. I think I butchered that Saturday Night Live sketch, so I apologize for that. Okay, so on January 28th, 1941, my vote for the best pure fighter pilot in the war was RAF Ace Roland-Robert Stanford Tuck. On this date, he was awarded the DSO, the Distinguished Service Order, which is one level below the Victoria Cross. That's a big deal. I guess the equivalent for American military would be the Distinguished Flying Cross, okay, or the Navy Cross in the Navy, and I'm not sure what it would be in the Army. Oh, no, Silver Star is the third highest. I digress. Anyway, it was a big deal. He ended the war with about 29 victories. In his own private tally, he thinks he got 35, but he was, they never could keep him down. He shot down a couple times, but ultimately, anti-aircraft is what got him. It wasn't another pilot, because he was just absolutely an amazing pilot, pure fighter pilot, could out turn anybody. Put him in a Spitfire, he was a deadly weapon. Uh, I'm sure that if Wing Commander Tuck was here right now, he would do what you should do, and he would go and click on the thumbs up below the screen and write a comment. He'd say, "Thank you, old chap." I don't know if he'd say it that way. My British accent's terrible, but I'm sure he'd leave a comment. And I hope you can do that as well, because it's important to help my channel grow. That's the best way you can help me grow, by doing that. It's a very simple thing, so I would appreciate it. Thank you. Now, January 28th, 1942, exactly 1 year later, The same British fighter pilot, Robert Roland Stanford Tuck, that I just talked about and heaped tons of praise on the guy. He was shot down and taken prisoner on this date. Can you believe that? I mean, this guy had almost a supernatural career. Uh, if you can, if you're into these types of stories, go try to buy his book, his biography, Fly for Your Life. There's a thing called Tuck's luck, and he had incredible, almost supernatural luck to keep him alive. And weird stuff happened. Like, for example, one time he was attacking a night bomber over Wales, and his attack forced the bomber to drop its load and fly away. And it just so happened that one of those bombs killed his sister's husband. I mean, how weird is that? And then he gets taken prisoner, shot down, taken prisoner a year to the date that he had the DSO, and just the whole different stuff. I mean, it's like that's only like three of the highlights of how lucky this guy was. So I really recommend that you buy that if you really enjoy biographies of fighter pilots in World War II. I've read that thing probably 50 times since I was a kid. Speaking of fighter pilots, on January 28th, 1942, fighter ace Adolf Garland and future general of the fighters received the diamonds to his Knight's Cross by Hitler himself. Well, that's a dubious honor if you think about it. I mean, I'm not sure that after World War II, you're going to go around to parties showing pictures of Hitler awarding you the knights to your or diamonds to your Knight's Cross. But maybe that's just me. I don't know. Maybe he frequented more Nazi areas. I don't know. But by this time of the war, he had received, he had made 94 kills. Interesting guy. He entered the war as in a jet fighter squadron. He lost his position and he was wounded, but did survive the war. And actually, going back to Robert Roland Stanford Tuck, the RAF Ace, I've just been, slurping the last two sections of this video. They actually became good friends, which was interesting. So anyway, that was an interesting little tidbit on what happened today. On the 28th of January, 1943, I call this the clubbing of the baby Italian seals because this was when the Italians were trying to leave Tunisia, make it to Italy to avoid capture. They had were four small minesweeping, not even minesweepers, minesweeping tugs, okay, and a couple of fishing trawlers, a couple of minesweepers, and some patrol vessels. Well, the two British destroyers, Javelin and Kelvin, moved in to intercept them. This was at night. They fired star shells, and the British destroyers thought that it was a convoy. It was a Italian convoy trying to supply the Italian, the Axis, the Germans, the Italians, and so they went after it. And of course, they had 5-inch guns. They had, lower caliber guns. There's no way in the world that this ragtag fleet, if you want to call it that, could fight back. I mean, I think one of the minesweepers had a 76 millimeter gun, and I think two had machine guns, but that was it. They did not have anything like that at all. So it was a fiasco for the Italians. I mean, look, I'm not saying the destroyers did anything wrong. Of course, that they were the enemy. They were trying to escape. That they were supposed to destroy the enemy. But tell you what, that was poor Italians because that was like bringing a knife to a gunfight. There was just no hope for that. On January 28th, 1944, the very last escape from Colditz Castle happened. This was late in the day. This was in 44. But this a Canadian prisoner of war, his name was Lieutenant Bill Miller. I think his nickname in the castle was Dopey Miller. He was able to get out of Colditz, a very ingenious, very simple method of doing that, which was just hiding underneath a German truck that drove out of the camp, and he was able to get off scot-free. And everybody in Colditz was like, wow, we did another home run. This is awesome. But they had a tradition. If you made a home run, you sent a postcard back or a letter back to Colditz, but they never got anything from him. And he's disappeared from history. But after the Great Escape happened, Hitler and the Germans announced that any escapees would be sent to concentration camps and killed. There was never any written record about this, but it's pretty obvious that he was taken a night in fog, Nacht in Nebel, which meant that he was executed, just like the 50 British POWs were executed who escaped from Luftstalag 3 in the Great Escape. So. Don't get me started how much I hate German fascism or fascism of any kind, okay? On January 28, 1944, German Field Marshal Kesselring, who was in charge of defending the Italian theater against the Allies, he was the one that set up all these ingeniously professional defense lines in the mountains, using terrain against the Americans and the Brits and the French and the Australians, New Zealanders and the Brazilians and so on and so forth, Poles. Um, the Americans and the British had outflanked the Gustav line. They landed in Anzio, and after a couple of days, the American general, as I talked about in yesterday's video, decided he was in no big hurry. So Kesselring said, well, okay, if you're not going to attack me, I might as well attack you. And so he ordered a counterattack against the Allied beachhead at Anzio. And boy, did the poop hit the fan. And, it was almost a catastrophe. Luckily, it got to the point where the Americans had to literally airdrop the 82nd Airborne to reinforce to keep them from being driven back into the sea. It's pathetic performance of the American general. They're just pathetic. With Lucas and Mark Clark, boy, the cream of the crop was definitely not on the Italian front for the American army when it comes to their generals. And finally, on January 28, 1945, the Germans ordered that all of the Jewish members of the U.S. sergeants and corporals who were in the Stalag, it was Stalag 9A at Ziegenhain, Germany, the senior NCO, because there were no officers, it was just sergeants. His name was Master Sergeant Roddy Edmonds. He had his entire complement of POWs, about 1,265, line up in their place. So it's kind of like, when all the Jews stepped forward, the entire contingent of American POWs stepped forward. And when the German officers repeated that they only wanted the Jews in line, then Master Sergeant Edmonds said, we are all Jews here. And by doing this, they were able to put up enough resistance to where the Germans backed off. Too bad we don't have enough people like that in this world that stand up against, discrimination and anti-Semitism that goes on even now. And it's rising. Thank you very much for watching this video. I appreciate it. I can't wait to get you another video tomorrow.